Officer Tom Parker rubbed his tired eyes as he pulled into the parking lot of the Oak Ridge Police Department. The morning sun barely peeked over the horizon, casting long shadows across the nearly empty lot. He was starting his 4th week in this small, peaceful town, and he still felt like an outsider. The transfer from the busy downtown precinct of the city had been his choice, a chance for a fresh start after a difficult year. But fitting in was proving harder than he expected. "Morning, Parker," called Officer Rodriguez as Tom walked through the station doors. "Ready for another exciting day of lost cats and parking violations?" He chuckled, but Tom could only manage a tight smile in response. The light-hearted teasing from his colleagues had become a daily ritual, a constant reminder that he hadn't yet earned his place among them. Tom nodded politely and headed to his desk. The small station buzzed with the usual morning activity, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, the coffee machine gurgling in the break room. He glanced toward the office at the far end of the room where the blinds were drawn. Chief Beckett was already in, as usual. The police chief had a reputation for being fair but demanding, expecting nothing less than excellence from everyone on the force. "Hey, new guy." Officer Chen dropped a stack of paperwork on Tom's desk. "Chief wants these reports filed before noon. And don't forget we have training at 3. Tom nodded again, suppressing a sigh. In his old precinct, he'd been respected, even looked up to. Here he was just the new guy, still trying to prove himself. He pulled the first report toward him and got to work, determined to show everyone that he belonged here. By mid-morning, the station had quieted down. Most officers were out on patrol, and Tom had finished filing the reports. He was just considering taking an early lunch when his radio crackled to life. "Dispatch to all available units. We have a report of a shoplifting incident at Westfield Mall. Suspect described as a young female in a blue jacket with a backpack, last seen heading toward the south entrance." Tom immediately reached for his radio. Officer Parker responding. "I'm 5 minutes from the mall." "Copy that, Officer Parker. Security reports the suspect took merchandise from the electronics store and fled on foot." This was his chance. A real call. Not just another noise complaint or fender bender. Tom grabbed his keys and headed for the door, a surge of adrenaline pushing away his earlier fatigue. "Hey, Parker," Officer Rodriguez called after him. "Remember, we do things differently here than in the big city. No heroics, okay?" Tom barely heard him, already mentally preparing for the task ahead. This was what he was trained for, what he was good at. Finally, a chance to show these small-town cops what he could do. The drive to Westfield Mall took exactly 4 minutes. Tom parked his patrol car near the south entrance and scanned the area. The mall wasn't very busy on a weekday morning, just a scattering of shoppers going about their business. He stepped out of his car and adjusted his uniform, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Officer Parker to dispatch. "I'm at Westfield Mall, south entrance. Any update on the suspect's location?" Dispatch to Officer Parker. Security lost visual on the suspect, still believed to be in the vicinity of the south entrance. Tom nodded to himself and began a systematic sweep of the area. He moved with purpose, eyes alert for anyone matching the description. After a few minutes of searching, he spotted a small figure sitting alone on a bench outside the mall entrance. A child wearing what looked like a navy blue jacket, with a backpack at their feet. His training kicked in, but something felt off. The suspect was described as young, but this was clearly a child, probably no older than 10. Still, the jacket and backpack matched, and she was sitting alone, looking nervous. Tom approached cautiously, maintaining what he thought was a non-threatening posture. "Excuse me," he said, his voice firm but not harsh. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" The girl looked up, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of his uniform. She had light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and freckles scattered across her nose. "Yes, sir?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "What's your name?" Tom asked, positioning himself to block any potential escape route, a habit from his days dealing with actual criminals. "Lily," she answered, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Lily Beckett. The last name tickled something in Tom's memory, but he was too focused on the task at hand to give it much thought. "What are you doing here alone, Lily?" "I'm waiting for my mom," she explained, her voice growing slightly stronger. "She's at the pharmacy getting my dad's medicine. She told me to wait here." Tom frowned. It seemed plausible, but he'd heard plenty of stories from young shoplifters before. "Do you have a receipt for what's in your backpack?" Confusion clouded Lily's face. My backpack? It just has my library books and my water bottle. Mind if I take a look? Tom was already reaching for the backpack, his mind set on finding the stolen electronics. Lily's eyes grew wider, and her lower lip trembled slightly. Do I have to? Something about her fear should have given Tom pause, but he was too caught up in proving himself. In making his first real arrest since coming to Oak Ridge. It's routine procedure, he said, using his authoritative voice, the one that had served him well in intimidating actual criminals back in the city. A few shoppers had stopped to watch the interaction, their curious gazes making Lily shrink further into herself. Tom noticed but ignored them. He'd deal with the onlookers after confirming his suspicions. Officer Parker to dispatch. I've detained a possible suspect at the south entrance bench. Young female, blue jacket, has a backpack. Running verification now. Copy that, Officer Parker, came the response. Be advised, mall security has updated that the suspect was wearing a bright blue windbreaker, not a dark jacket. Tom felt a flicker of doubt but pushed it aside. Colors could be subjective and witnesses often got details wrong. The girl matched the general description, and her nervousness seemed suspicious. Lily, I need you to stay seated while we sort this out, he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. He placed the backpack between them on the bench and unzipped it. Inside were exactly what she had claimed. 3 library books with the Oak Ridge Public Library stamp clearly visible. A pink water bottle decorated with unicorn stickers and a small pencil case. No electronics. No stolen merchandise. Tom felt the first real stirring of unease. Had he made a mistake, see? Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper.
Can I go find my mom now?
She'll be worried. The crowd of onlookers had grown. Tom noticed a woman filming the interaction on her phone, her expression disapproving. He suddenly felt exposed, his actions under scrutiny. Just a few more questions, he said, trying to maintain his authority despite his growing doubt. How old are you, Lily? 9, she answered, a tear spilling down her cheek. I'll be 10 next month, 9 years old. Definitely too young to be the shoplifter security had reported. Tom's unease deepened into something approaching alarm. And your mom is in the pharmacy? The one inside the mall? Lily nodded, wiping her tear away with the back of her hand. Tom's radio crackled again. Dispatch to Officer Parker. Update on the shoplifting incident. Suspect has been apprehended by Officer Chen at the north entrance. Repeat, suspect is in custody. The knot in Tom's stomach tightened. He'd detained the wrong person, a 9-year-old girl waiting for her mother. And not just any 9-year-old girl, if his sudden realization about her last name was correct. Lily, he said, his voice gentler now. Is your dad by any chance? The police chief, came a woman's voice from behind him, as cold and sharp as ice. Tom turned to find himself face to face with a woman he recognized from photographs in the station. Dr. Anna Beckett. The chief's wife stood there with a pharmacy bag in one hand and murder in her eyes. Officer, she prompted, her gaze flicking to his name badge. Parker, would you care to explain why you're interrogating my daughter? Mom! Lily jumped up and ran to her mother, burying her face against Dr. Beckett's side. The crowd of onlookers had grown larger, many with phones raised, capturing every moment of Tom's humiliation. His mind raced, searching for a way to salvage the situation, to explain his actions in a way that wouldn't end his career before it had really begun in Oak Ridge. Dr. Beckett, there was a report of a shoplifter, he began, but she cut him off with a raised hand. A shoplifter that my 9-year-old daughter resembles. Her voice was controlled but vibrating with anger. A child sitting openly on a bench with library books? Is this how Oak Ridge police officers are trained to handle situations involving minors? Tom felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool morning air. I was just following protocol. Protocol? Dr. Beckett raised an eyebrow. I believe protocol involves proper identification and verification before detention, especially when children are involved. She checked her watch. I expect you'll be hearing from my husband very shortly. Come on, Lily, let's go. As they walked away, Tom's radio crackled once more. Dispatch to Officer Parker. Chief Beckett requests your immediate return to the station. Code 19. Code 19. Report directly to the chief's office. Tom's heart sank. 4 weeks in Oak Ridge, and he might have just ended his career with a single, terrible mistake. Tom's drive back to the station felt like the longest of his life. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, and each traffic light seemed determined to stretch his agony by turning red just as he approached. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on his chest, making it difficult to breathe. "What was I thinking?" he muttered to himself, replaying the scene at the mall over and over. A 9-year-old girl, the police chief's daughter. He'd let his eagerness to prove himself cloud his judgment, and now he might lose everything he'd worked for. The station parking lot looked different somehow when he pulled in, more threatening, as if the building itself knew what he had done and was waiting to pass judgment. Tom took a deep breath, straightened his uniform, and walked inside with as much dignity as he could muster. The usual buzz of activity in the station had been replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Officers glanced up as he entered, then quickly looked away, pretending to be busy with paperwork or computer screens. Only Officer Rodriguez met his eyes directly, giving him a small nod that might have been sympathy or might have been farewell. "Parker," Officer Chen called from across the room. "Chief's waiting." Tom nodded, his throat too dry for words. The walk to Chief Beckett's office felt like walking to his own execution. He knocked on the door, hearing a gruff enter from inside. Chief Robert Beckett sat behind his desk, his face unreadable. He was a tall man with salt and pepper hair cut in a military style, and eyes that seemed to see right through you. Those eyes were fixed on Tom now, studying him with the intensity of a scientist examining a specimen under a microscope. "Sir," Tom began, standing at attention, "I want to apologize for—" "Sit down, Parker," Chief Beckett interrupted, gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. "Before we discuss what happened at the mall, I want to ask you something. Why did you become a police officer?" The question caught Tom off guard. He had expected yelling or cold fury or immediate dismissal, not this calm inquiry into his career choice. I wanted to help people," he answered truthfully, lowering himself into the chair. "My dad was a cop. He taught me that wearing the badge means being there for people when they need you most." Chief Beckett nodded slowly. "Good answer. Now tell me how detaining a 9-year-old girl without proper cause helps anybody." The word stung like a slap. Tom felt heat rising in his face. "It doesn't, sir. I made a mistake. A serious one." "Yes, you did." The chief leaned back in his chair. "Do you know what my wife told me when she called? She said Lily was in tears, scared, humiliated in front of strangers. She said you treated our daughter like a criminal." Tom's stomach twisted with shame. "I never meant to." "What you meant doesn't matter much right now, does it?" Chief Beckett's voice remained even, which somehow made it worse than if he'd been shouting. "Results matter. Actions matter. And your actions today hurt a child, my child, and damaged the community's trust in this department." A tense silence filled the room. Outside, the station phones rang and officers went about their day. But in this office, time seemed suspended as Tom waited for the chief to pronounce his fate. "I should fire you," Chief Beckett said finally. "Most officers in my position would." Tom nodded, his eyes fixed on a point on the desk. "I understand, sir, but I'm not going to. At least not yet." Tom's head snapped up, surprise momentarily replacing the dread that had settled in his chest. "Sir?" Chief Beckett studied him for a long moment. "You're a good officer, Parker. Your record from the city shows that. Outstanding service commendations, positive community feedback. But you've been different since you got here. Pushing too hard. Taking unnecessary risks, like you have something to prove." The chief's assessment was uncomfortably accurate. Tom remained silent, unsure how to respond. "What happened?" Chief Beckett asked, his tone softening slightly. "Something made you transfer from a promising career in the city to a small town like Oak Ridge. Something's been eating at you, affecting your judgment. I want to know what it is." Tom hadn't expected this conversation to turn personal. He shifted in his chair, the memories he'd tried to bury surging back to the surface. "There was an incident," he said finally, the words coming reluctantly. 6 months ago. A domestic violence call. The woman who called was badly hurt. Her boyfriend had a knife." He paused, his mouth dry. I hesitated. Just for a second. "My partner didn't. He got stabbed protecting her. He's still doing physical therapy. Might never return to active duty." Understanding dawned in the chief's eyes. "And you blame yourself." I froze, Tom admitted, the shame of it still fresh. All my training, all my experience, and when it mattered most, I froze. My partner paid the price. I couldn't face him or anyone else at the precinct after that. So I ran away. Came here for a fresh start. Chief Beckett nodded slowly. And now you're overcompensating. Trying to prove to yourself that you're not that officer who hesitated? I guess I am. The realization settled on Tom like a heavy blanket. But that's no excuse for what I did today. No, it's not, the chief agreed. But it helps me understand. We all carry our past with us, Parker. The trick is not letting it make our decisions for us. He leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're on administrative duty for the next month, no patrol. You'll also be attending our community youth program 3 evenings a week, talking to kids about safety and what police officers really do. Tom blinked in surprise. You're giving me a second chance? I believe in second chances, Chief Beckett said. But not third ones. Mess up again and you're done. Clear? Crystal clear, sir. Thank you. The chief stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. One more thing. You owe my daughter an apology. A real one, face to face, Tom swallowed hard. Of course. Good, she'll be at the youth center this afternoon for her piano lesson. 4 o'clock. Chief Beckett opened his office door. Don't be late. Tom nodded and walked out, feeling the eyes of the entire station following him. The weight on his chest had lightened somewhat, but a new anxiety had taken its place. Apologizing to the chief was one thing. Apologizing to a 9-year-old girl he had wrongfully detained and scared was something else entirely. The rest of the day crawled by. Tom processed paperwork, filed reports, and tried to ignore the whispers that followed him around the station. By 3:30, he couldn't stand it anymore and decided to head to the youth center early. The Oak Ridge Youth Center was a renovated warehouse on the edge of town, painted in bright colors with a basketball court outside. Inside, various activities were underway. Art classes, tutoring sessions, a small group practicing dance moves in one corner. Tom felt painfully conspicuous in his uniform as he asked the receptionist where the music rooms were. Down the hall, last door on the right, she told him with a curious glance. Are you here for Lily? Word traveled fast in small towns. Yes, ma'am, Tom replied, trying not to show his discomfort. He found the music room easily enough and stood outside, gathering his courage. Through the window in the door, he could see Lily sitting at a piano with an older woman beside her, guiding her fingers over the keys. The girl's face was serious with concentration, showing no trace of the tears from earlier. Tom checked his watch. 3:50. He decided to wait, not wanting to interrupt the lesson. As he stood there, he rehearsed what he would say, how he would apologize, though no words seemed adequate for the mistake he had made. At precisely 4 o'clock, the door opened and the piano teacher emerged. Officer, she acknowledged with a nod. Lily's inside. There was a coolness in her tone that told Tom the news of the morning's events had indeed spread widely. Thank you, he said, then hesitated. Is her mother here too? Dr. Beckett had an emergency at the hospital. She knows you're coming. The teacher gave him a look that clearly added an unspoken warning. Don't upset this child again. Tom took a deep breath and entered the music room. Lily was still sitting at the piano, idly pressing keys without making a song. She looked up when he entered, her expression immediately guarded. Hi, Lily, Tom said, keeping his distance, not wanting to crowd her. Do you remember me from this morning? She nodded, her fingers going still on the piano keys. You thought I stole something. The direct simplicity of her statement made Tom wince. Yes, and I was wrong. Very wrong. I came to say I'm sorry. Lily studied him with the frank curiosity of childhood. My dad says everyone makes mistakes. Your dad is right, Tom agreed, surprised by her response. But when we make mistakes, we need to apologize and try to make things better. Are you in trouble? She asked, hitting a low note on the piano that seemed to emphasize the seriousness of the question. Tom considered how to answer. Yes, he said finally, deciding honesty was important. What I did was wrong. I scared you and embarrassed you in front of strangers, and that's not what police officers are supposed to do. Lily nodded, seeming to appreciate his straightforward answer. My mom was really mad. I bet she was, Tom said, managing a small smile. Moms are good at protecting their kids. Dad too, Lily added. He said you had to learn an important lesson. Tom's smile grew more genuine. He's teaching me a few, yes. A silence fell between them, not entirely uncomfortable. Lily turned back to the piano and played a simple melody, her small fingers moving with surprising confidence. That's pretty, Tom said when she finished. How long have you been playing? 2 years, she answered, a hint of pride in her voice. I practice every day. It shows, Tom told her. You know, playing an instrument takes a lot of dedication. That's impressive. Lily looked pleased at the compliment. Do you play anything? Tom shook his head. No, never had the patience for it. Maybe that's something else I need to learn. The girl seemed to consider this. Then, to Tom's surprise, she scooted over on the piano bench. I could show you something easy if you want. The offer caught him off guard. After what had happened that morning, the last thing he had expected was for Lily to willingly share something with him. It was a small gesture of forgiveness that felt far more generous than he deserved. I'd like that, he said, carefully sitting down beside her, making sure to leave plenty of space between them. But I warn you, I might be really bad at it. Lily giggled, a bright, unexpected sound that seemed to lighten the entire room. That's okay. Everyone's bad at first. You just have to practice. As she began to show him where to place his fingers for a simple C scale, Tom felt something in his chest loosen. He wasn't forgiven yet, not fully, but he'd been given a chance to start making amends. And maybe that was the most important lesson of all. A week into his administrative duty, Tom was going stir-crazy. He'd never been good with paperwork, and the mountain of files on his desk seemed to grow larger no matter how many hours he spent processing them. His only relief came from his 3 evenings at the youth center, which had turned out to be more rewarding than he'd expected. Hey, Officer Parker, called a familiar voice as he entered the center on Wednesday afternoon. Lily waved from the art table where she was working on what looked like a colorful poster. Several other children were scattered around the large room, engaged in various activities. Tom smiled and waved back, still surprised by how quickly the girl had seemed to forgive him. Their piano lesson the week before had broken the ice, and while he'd made absolutely no progress as a musician, he had made significant progress in earning Lily's trust. What are you working on? He asked, approaching the art table but careful to maintain a respectful distance. The last thing he wanted was for any of the parents to think he was singling out the chief's daughter. It's for the community fair this weekend, Lily explained, holding up the poster. Dad says you're going to be there. Tom nodded. That's right. Chief assigned me to the department booth. The annual Oak Ridge Community Fair was apparently a big deal in town, with nearly everyone attending. Chief Beckett had made it clear that Tom's presence there was not optional. It was part of his reintegration into the community. Cool. We're doing a bake sale to raise money for new instruments, Lily said, turning back to her poster which advertised homemade cookies and cupcakes. Mom's making her special chocolate chip cookies. They're the best. I'll have to try one, Tom replied, genuinely looking forward to it. Those look like some persuasive cookies you're drawing there. Lily giggled, adding more chocolate chips to her illustration. Officer Rodriguez walked in then, carrying a box of sports equipment. Parker, good, you're early. Help me set up the basketball clinic. Tom excused himself and joined his colleague. In the past week, Rodriguez had been one of the few officers who treated him normally, neither avoiding him nor treating him with the exaggerated politeness that suggested underlying judgment. How's desk duty treating you? Rodriguez asked as they unloaded basketballs. Tom groaned. Like slow torture, I'm not cut out for it. Nobody is, Rodriguez laughed. But it's not forever. Chief doesn't hold grudges. Once you've learned your lesson, you're good. If you say so, Tom said, not entirely convinced. It's just, I keep seeing those videos. The incident at the mall had inevitably made it onto social media. Several bystanders had recorded Tom questioning Lily. And while none of the videos showed anything truly damning, he hadn't raised his voice or touched her inappropriately. The image of a uniformed officer intimidating a small child didn't play well online. Local news had picked it up briefly, but thankfully the story had faded within a couple of days. People have short memories, Rodriguez said, setting up cones for drills. Trust me, by next month they'll have moved on to something else. Just keep showing up, doing the work. The basketball clinic filled quickly with energetic 10 to 12-year-olds, keeping both officers busy for the next hour. Tom found himself enjoying the chaos, the simple physical activity a welcome change from shuffling papers. The kids responded well to him too, especially when he demonstrated his surprisingly good jump shot. You're not bad with them, Rodriguez observed as they packed up afterward. Ever think about coaching? Tom shook his head. Never crossed my mind. I was always focused on the job. Well, maybe you should think about it. We could use another coach for the department's youth league. The suggestion stayed with Tom as he drove home that evening. He'd never considered himself particularly good with children, had never spent much time around them at all, but the past week had shown him a different side of community policing than he'd experienced in his years in the city. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the community fair. Tom arrived early to help set up the police department's booth, which featured safety information, child ID kits, and a display about the department's community initiatives. Chief Beckett nodded approvingly when Tom showed up 10 minutes early, though he didn't say anything. By noon, the fairgrounds were packed. Families strolled between booths, children ran around with faces painted like butterflies and tigers, and the smell of funnel cakes and barbecue filled the air. Tom handed out stickers to kids and chatted with parents, surprised at how few people seemed to recognize him from the mall incident. Or if they did, they didn't mention it. "Officer Parker," called a woman's voice behind him. Tom turned to find Dr. Beckett approaching the booth holding a large container of cookies. Lily trailed behind her, now sporting a rainbow painted across her cheek. "Dr. Beckett," he greeted her nervously. This was their first interaction since the incident, and he wasn't sure what to expect. "Anna, please," she corrected him with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Lily tells me you've been helping at the youth center." Tom nodded. "Yes, ma'am. 3 days a week? And apparently you have quite the basketball skills," she added, her expression softening slightly. Lily was very impressed. Tom glanced at Lily, who was arranging cookies on a plate at the neighboring booth. "She's a good kid." "Yes, she is," Dr. Beckett agreed, her protective instinct evident in her tone. "She's also remarkably forgiving." She studied Tom for a moment. "Robert, Chief Beckett says you're doing well with your reassignment." "I'm trying," Tom said honestly. "I know I messed up badly. I'm grateful for the second chance." Dr. Beckett nodded, seeming to come to a decision. "We're having a small barbecue at our house next weekend. Nothing fancy, just a few officers and their families. Robert suggested I invite you." Her tone made it clear that the invitation hadn't entirely been her idea. Tom was stunned. Thank you. That's very kind. 6 o'clock. Don't bring anything except yourself." With that, Dr. Beckett turned and walked back to the bake sale booth, leaving Tom wondering if he'd imagined the entire interaction. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly. Tom found himself genuinely enjoying the community atmosphere, a stark contrast to his years in the city where interactions with the public were often tense or confrontational. Here people stopped to chat, asked questions, even thanked him for his service. It was nice, different, but nice. As the fair was winding down, Officer Chen approached the booth with a teenager in tow. The boy looked about 16, wearing a hoodie despite the warm weather, his expression sullen. "Parker got a situation here," Chen said quietly. "Caught this young man trying to pocket some merchandise from the sports vendor. Nothing major, just a baseball cap, but the vendor wants to press charges." Tom looked at the teenager, recognizing the mixture of defiance and fear in his eyes. He'd seen it countless times before. "What's your name?" Tom asked. "Tyler," the boy muttered, not meeting his gaze. "First offense?" Chen nodded. "No record that I could find. Parents are divorced, dad's not in the picture, mom works 2 jobs. Tom considered the situation. A few weeks ago, he would have processed the shoplifting case by the book, not thinking twice about how a minor offense might affect a kid's future. Now he wasn't so sure that was the right approach. "Let me talk to the vendor," Tom said. "You stay with him." The sports vendor was packing up his unsold merchandise, still visibly annoyed. Tom approached him calmly. "Sir, I understand you had a shoplifting incident," he began. The vendor, a middle-aged man with a sunburned neck, nodded vigorously. "Kid thought I wouldn't notice him slipping that Cardinals cap into his pocket." $40 hat. "I understand your frustration," Tom said, "and you have every right to press charges. But I'd like to propose an alternative if you're willing to hear me out." The vendor crossed his arms but nodded. "The boy has no prior record. Instead of formal charges, what if he works off the debt? You mentioned you're short-handed at your store earlier today. He could stock shelves, clean up, whatever you need, for however many hours it takes to pay for the hat. Plus he apologizes and returns the hat undamaged." The vendor thought it over. "And if he doesn't show up to work?" "Then you call me directly and we process the charges," Tom said, handing over his card. "But this way, He learns there are consequences without getting a record that could affect his college applications or job prospects. After a moment's consideration, the vendor agreed. Tom returned to Chen and Tyler, explaining the arrangement. The relief on the teenager's face was evident, though he tried to hide it behind a shrug. "Why are you doing this?" Tyler asked as Chen stepped away to call his mother. Tom thought about Lily, about second chances, about the difference between enforcing the law and serving the community. "Because everybody makes mistakes," he said finally. "It's what you do afterward that matters." As Tyler's mother arrived to pick him up, profusely thanking Tom for the alternative arrangement, Chief Beckett appeared beside him. "Saw what you did there," the chief commented, watching the family leave. "Not exactly by the book," Tom tensed. "No, sir. But I thought, it was good," Chief Beckett interrupted. "You're learning to see the person, not just the offense. That's progress." The chief's approval, understated as it was, felt like a milestone. As they finished packing up the booth, Tom realized something surprising. For the first time since the incident at the mall, he felt like he might actually belong in Oak Ridge after all. Tom stood in front of the Beckett family home on Saturday evening. A modest two-story house with a well-maintained lawn and flower beds bursting with early summer blooms. He'd changed his outfit 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a button-up shirt. Casual enough for a backyard barbecue, but respectful enough for a dinner at the chief's house. Despite the invitation, he still felt like he was walking into the lion's den. He took a deep breath and knocked on the front door. A moment later, it swung open to reveal Lily, her face lighting up with recognition. "Officer Parker, you came." She turned and shouted into the house, "Dad, Officer Parker is here. I told you to call me Tom, remember?" He reminded her with a smile. Their piano lessons had continued at the youth center, though he remained hopelessly untalented. "Tom," she corrected herself, stepping aside to let him in. "Dad's out back with the grill. Mom says he thinks he's some kind of barbecue master, but really he just burns stuff." The frank assessment made Tom laugh. "I'll keep that in mind." The inside of the Beckett home was warm and lived in, with family photos lining the walls and a mixture of practical and comfortable furniture. It looked nothing like the sparse apartment Tom had been living in since his move to Oak Ridge. Lily led him through the house to the backyard, where about a dozen people were gathered. Chief Beckett stood at a large grill, spatula in hand, engaged in what appeared to be a friendly argument with Officer Rodriguez about the proper way to cook a burger. Dr. Beckett, Anna, was arranging plates on a picnic table, while several other officers and their families chatted in small groups. Tom felt a flutter of anxiety. This was the first time he'd socialized with his colleagues outside of work since the incident. How many of them still saw him as the cop who had detained the chief's daughter? How many had written him off already? "Tom," Chief Beckett called out, spotting him. "Grab a beer and come settle this debate. Rodriguez here thinks a burger should be pink in the middle. The man's a health hazard." The casual greeting, the use of his first name, and the immediate inclusion in their conversation eased some of Tom's tension. He accepted a beer from a cooler and joined the men at the grill. "Medium well is the only safe way to eat ground beef," Tom offered, feeling his way into the conversation. "Sorry, Rodriguez, et tu, Parker?" Rodriguez clutched his chest in mock betrayal. "And here I thought you were a man of culture." The easy banter continued as more guests arrived. To Tom's surprise, no one treated him differently or mentioned the mall incident. It was as if a silent agreement had been made to move forward. Even Anna Beckett was cordial, including him in conversations about the town's history and the upcoming school renovations. After dinner, as the adults relaxed and the few children present played in the yard, Chief Beckett gestured for Tom to join him on the porch. "How's it going, Parker?" the chief asked, his tone more personal than their workplace interactions. "Really?" Tom considered the question. "Better," he said honestly. "The youth center work has been eye-opening, and desk duty is almost bearable now." Chief Beckett chuckled. "High praise indeed." He took a sip of his beer. "You know, I checked in with the sports shop owner. Tyler's been showing up for his shifts, working hard. Owner's thinking of offering him a real part-time job when he's done with his restitution hours." The news warmed Tom more than he expected. "That's good to hear. Your idea, your solution," the chief pointed out. "A month ago you would have booked him without a second thought." "That's growth," Tom nodded, accepting the assessment. "I had a good teacher." "You had a wake-up call," Chief Beckett corrected him. What you did with it was your choice. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the lightning bugs begin to flicker in the gathering dusk. "I've been thinking," the chief said finally. "Your administrative duty ends next week. I've got a decision to make about your assignment going forward." Tom tensed slightly. Despite the pleasant evening, he still wasn't sure where he stood professionally. "Yes, sir?" "Drop the sir for tonight, Tom. We're off duty." Chief Beckett turned to face him. "I'm considering putting you on community outreach permanently." The suggestion caught Tom completely off guard. Community outreach? Not back on patrol? It would be a mix. Some patrol shifts, yes, but also expanding our youth programs, school visits, community events. The department needs someone who can connect with kids, and surprisingly, you've shown an aptitude for it. There was a hint of amusement in the chief's voice. Plus, you've got big city experience that could be valuable in developing new initiatives. Tom was speechless. He'd expected to be allowed back on regular patrol eventually if he was lucky. A specialized role focusing on community relations hadn't even crossed his mind. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "It's not what I pictured doing, but you're good at it," the chief finished for him. "Sometimes the job finds us, not the other way around. Think about it. Let me know on Monday." Before Tom could respond, a commotion from the yard caught their attention. Lily and 2 other children were clustered around something on the ground, their voices raised in concern. "Dad," Lily called. "Come quick. There's a baby bird that fell from its nest." Both men hurried down the porch steps. A tiny, mostly featherless bird lay on the grass, chirping weakly. The nest was visible in a tree branch about 10 feet up. "It's too high to reach," one of the other children said mournfully. Tom assessed the situation. "We need a ladder. Do you have one in the garage?" He asked the chief, who nodded and went to get it. "Will it be okay?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with concern. Tom knelt beside the children. "Birds are tougher than they look," he said, though he wasn't actually sure if the tiny creature would survive. "The important thing is to get it back to its nest as quickly as possible." Chief Beckett returned with a ladder, and Tom carefully picked up the baby bird, cradling it in his palms. It was so small, so fragile, its rapid heartbeat vibrating against his skin. He climbed the ladder slowly, mindful of both his balance and his precious cargo. The mother bird fluttered anxiously nearby, chirping in alarm. Tom stretched carefully, managing to peer into the nest where 3 other baby birds huddled together. "Almost there, little guy," he murmured, gently placing the fallen chick back with its siblings. The mother bird darted around his head, clearly wanting him gone from her family. "Message received," Tom said with a smile, backing down the ladder. The children cheered when he announced the successful rescue mission. "You did it," Lily exclaimed, her earlier worry transformed into delight. "We all did," Tom corrected her. "You found the bird, your dad got the ladder, and I just had the longest arms." This made the children laugh, and even Anna, who had come to watch the rescue, smiled approvingly. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Tom found himself helping clean up alongside Anna, carrying plates into the kitchen. "You're good with her," Anna remarked, rinsing dishes at the sink. "With Lily," Tom shrugged, a bit embarrassed by the compliment. "She makes it easy." "She's a great kid." Anna turned to look at him directly. "When Robert told me he'd invited you today, I had reservations." "I understand," Tom said quickly. "What happened at the mall was a mistake," Anna finished for him. "A serious one, yes. But watching you these past few weeks, especially with the children tonight, I can see you've learned from it." She handed him a dish towel. "I believe in second chances too, Tom. Just don't make me regret this one." The quiet acceptance in her words meant more than any formal forgiveness could have. Tom nodded, unable to find the right response. Later, as he was leaving, Lily ran up to him at the door. "Are you coming to my piano recital next week?" "It's on Thursday at the school auditorium." Tom looked uncertainly at her parents, who stood nearby. Chief Beckett nodded almost imperceptibly. "I wouldn't miss it," Tom told her with a smile. Driving home that night, Tom thought about the chief's offer. Community outreach wasn't what he'd envisioned for his career. It wasn't the adrenaline-fueled police work he'd done in the city. But maybe that was the point. Maybe this was where he needed to be. Not chasing suspects or proving himself in high-pressure situations, but building relationships, making a difference in smaller but equally important ways. For the first time since moving to Oak Ridge, Tom didn't feel like he was running away from his past mistake. Instead, he felt like he might be running toward something better, a chance to be the kind of officer who put the serve before the protect in the department motto. The kind of officer who would never make the same mistake again. As he pulled into his apartment complex, he'd already made his decision about the chief's offer. Monday couldn't come soon enough. 6 months had passed since the incident at the mall. Oak Ridge was deep into autumn now, the trees around town blazing with red and gold, fallen leaves crunching underfoot as Tom walked from his car to the elementary school. He carried a small bouquet of flowers, nothing extravagant, just a simple arrangement of daisies and carnations he'd picked up at the grocery store. The school hallways were quiet, most students having gone home for the day. Tom nodded to a few teachers who recognized him from his regular visits as part of the department's expanded safety program. He'd become a familiar face in Oak Ridge's schools over the past months, teaching kids about everything from crossing the street safely to what to do in an emergency. His destination was the music room at the end of the hall, where piano lessons took place after school hours. He paused outside, looking through the small window in the door. Lily sat at the piano, her brow furrowed in concentration as she worked through a piece that sounded far more complex than the simple melodies she'd been playing when he first met her. Her piano teacher sat beside her, occasionally pointing to the sheet music or demonstrating a technique. Tom waited until the lesson ended, not wanting to interrupt. When the teacher gathered her things and left, he knocked gently on the doorframe. Lily looked up, her serious expression melting into a smile. "Officer Tom, you came. I promised, didn't I?" he replied, entering the room. "These are for you. A little congratulations for getting the solo in the winter concert." He handed her the flowers. "Thanks." Lily buried her nose in the bouquet, inhaling deeply. "Mom says you're coming to dinner tonight. Dad's making his famous lasagna." Tom nodded. "Wouldn't miss it." "Your dad claims it's the best in town." "It's pretty good," Lily admitted. "But Ms. Lopez at the diner makes better garlic bread." Tom laughed. "Don't tell your dad that. It'll break his heart." As they walked out to the parking lot together, Tom marveled at how much had changed. What had begun as the worst mistake of his career had somehow transformed into one of the most meaningful relationships in his life. Lily wasn't just the chief's daughter anymore. She was a bright, funny kid who'd forgiven him when he barely deserved it, and in doing so had helped him find his place in Oak Ridge. "Race you to the car." Lily called suddenly, taking off across the playground that separated the school from the parking area. "No fair! Head start!" Tom called back, jogging after her at a deliberate pace that ensured she would win. Her laughter floated back to him on the crisp autumn air. At the parking lot, Chief Beckett waited in his personal vehicle. He waved as they approached, smiling at the flowers in Lily's hand. "Looks like someone's got an admirer," he teased as Lily climbed into the back seat. "They're congratulations flowers," she explained importantly, "for getting the solo." "Ah, of course." The chief nodded, then turned to Tom. "We'll see you at 7? "Yes, sir. I mean, Robert." Even after months, Tom sometimes slipped back into formality with his boss, especially during these casual, off-duty interactions that still felt new. "Don't be late." Anna's making her apple pie. The chief gave him a mock-serious look. "And that's worth being on time for." As their car pulled away, Tom headed to his own vehicle. He had a stop to make before dinner. 20 minutes later, he pulled up in front of a small house on the outskirts of town. The yard was tidier than the last time he'd visited, the grass freshly mowed despite the fallen leaves scattered across it. Tom grabbed a folder from his passenger seat and walked to the door. Tyler's mother answered his knock, her tired face brightening when she saw who it was. "Officer Parker." "Come in, please." Tyler just got home from work. The house was modest but clean, family photos lining the walls. Tyler emerged from the kitchen, a sandwich in his hand. At 16, he seemed to be constantly hungry. He'd filled out a bit since that day at the fair, no longer the skinny, sullen kid who'd tried to steal a baseball cap. "Hey, Officer Parker." Tyler greeted him with a casual nod that couldn't quite hide his pleasure at seeing Tom. "How's the job going?" Tom asked, taking a seat at the small dining table. "Really good," Tyler replied, his eyes lighting up. "Mr. Peterson is teaching me about inventory management. Says I've got a head for numbers." Tom smiled. The sports shop owner had indeed hired Tyler permanently after his restitution hours were complete, and the boy had thrived under the mentorship. That's great to hear. Actually, that's part of why I'm here. Tom opened the folder he'd brought. The department is starting a new cadet program for high school students interested in law enforcement or public service. Training, mentorship, even college scholarship opportunities. Chief Beckett asked me to reach out to promising candidates. Tyler's eyes widened. Me, but I got in trouble. I tried to steal, and you've more than made up for it, Tom interrupted gently. This program isn't for perfect kids. It's for kids who've shown they can learn from mistakes and want to make a difference. He slid the application across the table. Just think about it. Applications are due next month. Tyler's mother wiped away a tear as her son picked up the papers, handling them as if they might disintegrate in his fingers. Thank you, she said softly to Tom, for giving him a chance. Someone did the same for me once, Tom replied simply. Later that evening, Tom sat at the Beckett family dinner table, savoring the last bite of Anna's apple pie. The conversation had flowed easily through dinner, touching on everything from department news to Lily's school projects to the upcoming town Halloween festival. So, Chief Beckett said, leaning back in his chair, the new Community Outreach Quarterly report came in today. Care to guess which district showed the biggest improvement in youth police relations? Tom smiled modestly. I had a lot of help. Don't be humble, Anna chided, gathering empty dessert plates. Robert says your programs have become a model for other districts. The school board chairman called me personally to praise the safety workshops. I just build on what was already here, Tom insisted. This town has always had a strong community spirit. I'm just channeling it. Chief Beckett shook his head with a smile. 6 months ago, you were counting the days until you could get back on regular patrol. Now listen to you, calm community spirit. He chuckled. You've gone native, Parker. Tom couldn't deny it. What had initially felt like a demotion, a punishment assignment, had become the most rewarding work of his career. His weekly basketball clinics were packed with teenagers who once would have gone out of their way to avoid a police officer. The elementary school safety patrols he'd organized beamed with pride in their reflective vests. Even his monthly coffee meetings with seniors at the community center had become something he looked forward to. Speaking of going native, Chief Beckett continued, his tone shifting to something more serious. I've been meaning to talk to you about your housing situation. Tom raised an eyebrow. My apartment? What about it? That place is depressing, the chief said bluntly. Blank walls, hardly any furniture, and you're still living out of boxes. Anna's sister is a realtor. She mentioned there's a small house for sale on Maple Street. Needs some work, but it's got potential. Tom blinked, surprised. Are you suggesting I buy a house? In Oak Ridge? Unless you're planning on leaving us, Anna said, returning from the kitchen. The thought genuinely hadn't crossed Tom's mind in months. What had once been a temporary assignment, a stepping stone back to a real police job in the city, had somehow become home. I'm not going anywhere, Tom said, realizing as he spoke that he meant it completely. But a house? That's a big step. Just think about it, Chief Beckett said. Roots aren't such a bad thing. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Tom her science project before he left. As they stood in her bedroom examining the solar system model she'd constructed, Lily suddenly turned serious. Can I ask you something, Officer Tom? Of course, he replied, wondering at her change in tone. Are you happy here? In Oak Ridge? The question, so simple yet so profound coming from a 9-year-old, caught Tom by surprise. He thought about how to answer in a way she'd understand. I am, he said finally, very happy. Why do you ask? Lily shrugged, adjusting Neptune's position. I heard Dad telling Mom that when you first came here, you were sad a lot. And then after what happened at the mall, he was worried you might leave. But I told him you wouldn't. Tom smiled, touched by her confidence in him. How did you know I'd stay? Because, Lily said, as if it were